A terrified woman whispered in a trembling voice. "He's back again." Hearing these words, the man's reaction went viral within moments. That moment touched everyone's hearts and sent a powerful message of courage, protection, and humanity. Sarah Mitchell stood frozen in the grocery store parking lot, her phone pressed against her ear. The sun was setting, and the shadows grew longer between the cars. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper as she spoke to her brother on the phone. "He's back again," she said, trying to control the fear in her voice. Marcus, her younger brother, was on the other end. He heard something different in her tone. This wasn't the confident sister he knew. This was someone genuinely afraid. "Where are you?" Marcus asked immediately. "The parking lot, store on 5th Street. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Goodness Effect." Marcus was already grabbing his keys. He lived only 10 minutes away, but Sarah wasn't alone in her fear. For the past 3 weeks, a man had been following her. First, she noticed him outside his workplace. Then at the coffee shop she visited every morning. Then near her apartment building. She had reported it to the police twice. They took notes, filed reports, but said they couldn't do much without direct threats or contact. The man never approached her, he just watched. Always from her lies, always with the same cold stare. Today was different though. Sarah had seen him in the grocery store, pretending to shop. When she moved to another aisle, he followed. When she checked out quickly and rushed to her car, he was there too, standing by a white sedan 3 rows away. "Stay on the phone with me," Marcus said, his car already pulling out of his driveway. "Get in your car and lock the doors." Sarah's hands shook as she unlocked her vehicle. She glanced toward the white sedan. The man was still there, making no effort to hide anymore. He was watching her directly now. "Marcus, he's not even pretending anymore. He's just staring at me. I'm 5 minutes away. Do not hang up." Sarah climbed into her car and locked the doors. Her breath came in short bursts. She checked her mirrors. The man hadn't moved. He just stood there, arms crossed, watching her car. What was he waiting for? Why wouldn't he leave? And more importantly, what would happen when Marcus arrived? Sarah gripped the steering wheel, even though she hadn't started the engine. Through her rearview mirror, she could see him clearly. Mid-40s, average height, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. Nothing about him stood out except the intensity of his gaze. This had started 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday. Sarah worked as a nurse at the community hospital, often taking the late shift. She first noticed him in the hospital parking garage. At the time, she thought of it. Lots of people came and went from hospital. The second time was at Rosie's Cafe, her regular morning stop. She was ordering her usual coffee when she saw him sitting in the corner booth. Their eyes met for just a second before he looked away. A small alarm went off in her mind, but she dismissed it. The third sighting was outside her apartment complex. She was coming home from work, tired from a long shift, when she saw the same man standing across the street. He was looking up at the building. When she walked toward the entrance, he didn't move. He just watched. That night, Sarah called her friend Jennifer, who was a police officer. Jennifer advised her to start documenting everything. Take photos if possible, write down times and locations. Build a case. Sarah started carrying pepper spray. She changed her routine, taking different routes home. She stopped going to Rosie's Cafe. She parked in different spots at work. Nothing helped. He adapted to every change. Last week she filed her first official police report. The officer was sympathetic but honest. Without a direct threat, verbal contact or attempt to approach her, there was little they could legally do. They increased patrols near her apartment and workplace, but the man seemed to know when to disappear. 2 days ago, she filed a second report. This time she had photos. The detective looked at them carefully and ran them through their database. Nothing came up. The man had no criminal record, no woes, no history of stalking. Sometimes people become obsessed, the detective told her. It doesn't always make sense, but we need more to act on. Has he tried to contact you? No, he just watches. That's what makes this complicated. Now, sitting in her locked car with Marcus on the phone, Sarah realized the situation had escalated. The man wasn't hiding anymore. He was being bold. That shift frightened her more than anything. "Marcus, he's walking toward my car," Sarah said, her voice rising. "Stay calm. I'm turning onto 5th Street now. Keep your doors locked." The man moved slowly between the parked cars. his eyes never leaving Sarah's vehicle. He wasn't rushing, he moved with purpose, like someone who had all the time in the world. Sarah's finger hovered over the door lock button, double-checking it was engaged. Her other hand reached for the pepper spray in her purse. The man stopped about 20 feet from her car. He tilted his head slightly, as if studying her. Then he smiled. That smile made Sarah's blood run cold. It wasn't friendly or reassuring. It was knowing. Like he was enjoying her fear. "Marcus, please hurry," she whispered. "I'm here, I see you." Marcus's truck pulled into the parking lot fast, tires squealing slightly as he turned. He spotted Sarah's car immediately and saw the man standing nearby. Without hesitation, Marcus parked his truck directly between Sarah's car and the stranger. He jumped out, phone still in hand. At 6'3" and 200 pounds, Marcus was physically imposing. He worked construction, and his build showed it. But more than his size, it was the protective fury in his eyes that made people think twice. "Can I help you with something?" Marcus called out, his voice loud and firm. The man looked at Marcus with mild surprise, as if he hadn't expected interference. He raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Just walking to my car," the man said calmly. "Your car?" Marcus glanced around. "Which one?" The man pointed vaguely toward the white sedan he'd been standing near earlier, but he made no move toward it. Marcus walked closer, positioning himself between the stranger and Sarah's vehicle. "Funny how you're walking away from your car then. And funny how you've been following my sister for 3 weeks. The man's expression didn't change. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" "Because she's got photos of you. Outside her work, outside her apartment, at her coffee shop. Now here, you want to explain that?" A few other shoppers had stopped to watch. Someone had their phone out, recording. The man noticed the growing audience, and his calm demeanor cracked slightly. "I haven't done anything illegal," he said. "Following someone repeatedly is called stalking. That's illegal. I haven't approached her. I haven't threatened her. I haven't made contact." Marcus stepped closer. "You're making contact right now, and there are witnesses. People recording this, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk away. You're going to get at your car and leave. And you're never going to come near my sister again." The man's jaw tightened. "Or what?" "Or I call the police right now. And with all these witnesses and this video evidence of you approaching her car, you'll finally have done something they can arrest you for." The standoff lasted several long seconds. The man looked from Marcus to Sarah's car, then to the growing crowd. Several people had their phones out now. The situation had gone from private obsession to public spectacle. Finally, the man took a step back. "This is ridiculous. I'm just shopping." "Then shop somewhere else," Marcus said flatly. The man turned and walked toward the white sedan. He moved slowly, as if to prove he wasn't intimidated, but he was leaving, and that was what mattered. Marcus stayed where he was until the man got in his car and drove away. Only then did he walk to Sarah's window. She rolled it down, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "We're going to the police station right now, and this time they have to listen." Sarah nodded and started her car. Marcus got back in his truck and followed her, staying close. He wasn't taking any chances. But as they drove toward the police station, neither of them noticed the white sedan 2 cars behind them, following at a careful distance. The man wasn't finished. He was just getting started. Detective Laura Chen looked at the video playing on her computer screen for the 3rd time. The parking lot confrontation was clear. The audio was decent. You could hear everything Marcus said, and the man's responses. "This is good," she said, looking at Sarah and Marcus across her desk. "This gives us something to work with." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. Finally, someone was taking this seriously. Detective Chen was in her late 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to catch every detail. She had a reputation for handling stalking cases with both compassion and effectiveness. "I pulled the original reports you filed," she continued, opening a folder. "Combined with these photos, the timeline you've documented, and now this video, we can pursue a restraining order. More importantly, I can open an active investigation." "What does that mean?" Sarah asked. "It means I can dedicate resources to this. Patrol officers will be specifically assigned to watch your movements. We'll increase presence near your home and workplace. And I can start digging into who this guy actually is." Marcus leaned forward. "The other officers said he had no record." "That's true, but there are other databases. I can check if he's been reported for similar behavior in other jurisdictions. Sometimes stalkers move around, leave a trail in different cities. Detective Chen pulled up a form on her computer. I need you to tell me everything again, from the beginning. Every detail matters. Sarah spent the next hour recounting every sighting, every strange feeling, every moment she realized someone was watching her. Marcus added what he knew. The detective typed quickly, asking specific questions about times, locations, and the man's behavior patterns. You said he smiled at you today, Detective Chen noted. That's an escalation. He went from passive observation to active intimidation. That's significant. What does it mean? Sarah asked, though she feared the answer. It means he's getting bolder. The fact that he didn't run when your brother confronted him also tells me something. He's confident. He doesn't think he'll get caught, or he doesn't care if he does. That thought terrified Sarah. So what do I do? Detective Chen closed her laptop and looked directly at Sarah. First, you're not alone anymore. This is officially my case. Second, I want you to change your patterns again. Can you stay with family or friends for a while? She's staying with me, Marcus said immediately. I've got a spare room. Good. Sarah, I also want you to consider taking some time off work. I know that's not ideal, but if this person is targeting you there… I'm a nurse, Sarah interrupted. People depend on me. And we need you safe to help them. Talk to your supervisor. Explain the situation. Most hospitals have protocols for staff safety. Sarah nodded, reluctantly. She hated the idea of this man disrupting her life, forcing her to hide. But she also recognized the danger. There's one more thing, Detective Chen said, her expression growing more serious. I ran the license plate from that white sedan. It's registered to a rental company. He's using a rental car. Is that significant? Marcus asked. Very. It means he's trying to avoid being tracked. People don't rent cars for weeks at a time, unless they're hiding something. I'm contacting the rental company now to get the renter's information. Sarah felt a chill run through her. This was more calculated than she'd realized. This wasn't random obsession. This was planned. Detective Chen stood up, signaling the meeting was ending. I'll be in touch soon. In the meantime, stay vigilant. Keep documenting everything. And trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, call 911 immediately. As Sarah and Marcus left the police station, Sarah felt both relieved and more frightened than before. At least the authorities were taking action now. But would it be enough? And what would the man do when he realized he was being investigated? Detective Chen got the call from the rental company the next morning. The white sedan had been rented 4 weeks ago by someone named David Thornton. The address on the rental agreement led to a motel on the edge of town. Chen drove there with her partner, Detective Mike Rodriguez. The motel was the kind of place people stayed when they didn't want questions asked. Cash payments, weekly rates, no security cameras. The manager, a tired-looking man in his 60s, checked his records. Room allowed, tied up through next week. Quiet guy. Keeps to himself. Has he had visitors? Chen asked. Not that I've seen. Comes and goes at weird hours though. Sometimes gone all day, back late at night. The detectives knocked on the door of room 1112. No answer. They knocked again, identifying themselves as police. Still, nothing. With the manager's permission and probable cause from the stalking case, they entered the room. What they found made Shen's blood run cold. The walls were covered with photos, dozens of them. All of Sarah. At work, leaving her apartment, shopping, eating at restaurants. Some were taken from a distance with a zoom lens. Others were closer, taken when Sarah wasn't looking. But it was the map that caught Rodriguez's attention. Pinned to the wall above the bed was a large map of the city, with multiple locations marked in red. Sarah's apartment, the hospital, several coffee shops, the grocery store where the confrontation happened. Each location had notes beside it, times, patterns, details about when Sarah was usually there. This isn't random, Rodriguez said quietly. This is methodical. Chen photographed everything carefully. This was evidence they'd need, but something bothered her. She walked around the small room, looking for anything that might explain why. In the trash can, she found receipts, coffee shops, restaurants, a bookstore, normal stuff. Then she found one that made her pause. It was from a printing shop. The receipt showed payment for laminated cards and photo enlargements. Mike, look at this. Rodriguez joined her. They exchanged a glance. This was getting darker. Chen opened the small closet. Inside were clothes, a suitcase and a box on the top shelf. She pulled it down carefully. Inside were more photos, but these were older. Different women, different cities. Each woman had multiple photos, taken over time, documenting their movements and routines. He's done this before, Chen said, feeling sick. Multiple times. Rodriguez was already on his phone, calling the station. We need to run David Thornton through every database we have, national, international if necessary. This guy is a serial stalker. Chen continued searching the room. Under the bed, she found a journal. She opened it carefully, flipping through pages of neat handwriting. The entries were disturbing, describing Sarah's movements in obsessive detail, but that also revealed something important. David Thornton wasn't just watching Sarah randomly, he believed she was someone else. Someone from his past. The journal mentioned a woman named Elizabeth repeatedly, and how Sarah reminded him of her. He's delusional, Chen said, reading aloud to Rodriguez. He thinks Sarah is connected to someone called Elizabeth. Listen to this. Saw her again today. She pretends not to know me, but I see the recognition in her eyes. Elizabeth thinks she can hide by changing her name, but I found her. Rodriguez looked at the photos on the wall again. So in his mind, he's not stalking a stranger, he's reconnecting with someone he knows. Which makes him even more dangerous. He's not going to stop because he believes this relationship is real. Chen took photos of the journal pages. They needed psychiatric evaluation of this evidence. But more urgently, they needed to find Thornton. The manager returned to the doorway. Officers, the guy just pulled into the parking lot. He's heading this way. Chen and Rodriguez moved quickly. They stepped outside the room, positioning themselves on either side of the door. Chen signaled for the manager to step back. David Thornton appeared around the corner, carrying a bag of takeout food. When he saw the detectives, he stopped. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Thornton dropped the bag and ran. Rodriguez took off after him immediately. Chen called for backup on her radio while running in pursuit. Thornton was fast. But Rodriguez was faster. They crashed through the motel parking lot, between cars, toward the main road. Thornton looked back, saw Rodriguez gaining on him, and made a desperate decision. He ran straight into traffic. Horns blared. Brakes squealed. Rodriguez skidded to a stop at the edge of the road, watching Thornton weave between moving cars. For a terrifying moment, it looked like he might make it across. Then a delivery truck came around the corner. Thornton ran directly into its path. The driver slammed on the brakes, but there wasn't enough time. The impact wasn't severe, but it was enough. Thornton went down hard on the pavement. Rodriguez and Chen rushed across the road. Other drivers had stopped, and someone was already calling 911. Thornton was conscious but dazed. Rodriguez cuffed him anyway, reading him his rights. Chen called for an ambulance. As they waited, Thornton looked up at Chen with confused eyes. I didn't do anything wrong, he mumbled. I was just trying to protect her. Elizabeth needs me. Chen knelt down beside him. Elizabeth isn't real. The woman you've been following is named Sarah, and she doesn't know you. Thornton's expression crumpled. For a moment, he looked lost and broken. Then anger flashed across his face. You're lying. You're all lying. She knows who I am. She's just scared to admit it. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics began treating Thornton, while police backup secured the scene. Chen walked back to room 1112, her mind racing. They had caught him, yes. But the question remained. What had triggered this obsession with Sarah? And more importantly, who was Elizabeth? Sarah sat in Detective Chen's office the next morning, listening to the explanation with growing disbelief. Marcus was beside her, holding her hand. His real name is David Thornton, Chen explained, pulling up a file on her computer. He's 43 years old. Originally from Seattle, and he has a history. Chen turned the monitor so Sarah could see. The screen showed a timeline of incidents across 4 different states over 10 years. Thornton has been arrested 3 times for stalking. Each time involved a different woman. Each time he believed the woman was someone from his past, someone named Elizabeth. Who is Elizabeth? Sarah asked. His sister. She died 15 years ago in a car accident. According to the psychiatric evaluation from his second arrest, Thornton never accepted her death. He developed a delusional disorder. He sees women who remind him of her and becomes convinced they're Elizabeth pretending to be someone else. Sarah felt tears welling up. This man had terrorized her because of a delusion, because she reminded him of his dead sister. Why didn't anyone stop him? Marcus asked angrily. 3 arrests? How was he free to do this again? Chen's expression was sympathetic but frustrated. The mental health and legal systems don't always work together effectively. After each arrest, he was evaluated. Each time, he was treated and released. The medications helped temporarily, but he would stop taking them. And until he actually committed a violent crime, the system had limited options. So he just moved to different cities and found new victims, Sarah said quietly. Yes. The pattern was always the same. He'd fixate on a woman who resembled Elizabeth. He'd follow her, document her life, convince himself she was his sister. Usually the women would notice and report him. He'd get arrested, evaluated and released. Then he'd move and start again. Marcus stood up, pacing. What happens now? He's in custody. This time is different because we caught him in the middle of active stalking with extensive evidence. The photos in his room, the map, the journal entries. Plus we have prior arrests. The prosecutor is pushing for serious charges and mandatory long-term psychiatric treatment. Will he go to prison? Sarah asked. Hopefully, a psychiatric facility first. He needs help, Sarah. He's sick. But yes, there will be legal consequences too. Chen pulled out another document. There's something else you should know. We contacted the families of the other women he stalked. 2 of them want to testify about their experiences. It builds a stronger case against him. Sarah nodded slowly. The idea of other women going through the same fear she'd experienced made her both sad and angry. But knowing they'd all help put Thornton away provided some comfort. Can I ask you something? Sarah said. What made him fixate on me specifically? Chen pulled up a photo on her computer. It showed a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes, smiling at the camera. She looked remarkably similar to Sarah. This is Elizabeth, Thornton's sister. Sarah stared at the photo. The resemblance was striking. Same facial structure, same hair color, similar smile. It was like looking at a relative she'd never met. In his mind, you weren't just someone who reminded him of her, Chen explained. You were her. The delusion was complete. Sarah sat back, trying to process everything. She'd been targeted not for anything she did, but simply for how she looked. For resembling a woman who died before Sarah was even born. I want to make a statement, Sarah said suddenly. For the court. I want the judge to hear how this affected me. We'll arrange that, Chen assured her. Your testimony will be important. As Sarah and Marcus prepared to leave, Chen called Sarah back. One more thing. The video from the parking lot. Your brother's confrontation with Thornton. It went viral online. Over 2 million views now. Sarah looked surprised. She'd forgotten about the people recording that day. People are calling Marcus a hero, Chen continued. The way he protected you, stood up to Thornton. It resonated with people. Marcus looked uncomfortable with the attention, but Sarah squeezed his hand. He is a hero. He saved me. Outside the police station, Sarah turned to Marcus. I need to do something. For the other women. The ones he stalked before me. What are you thinking? Marcus asked. I want to start a support group. For stalking victims, people who understand what it's like to be followed, watched, afraid, in your own life. And I want to work on changing the laws, so people like Thornton can't just move to a new city and start over. Marcus smiled. That sounds like my sister, turning something terrible into something meaningful. Someone should benefit from this nightmare, Sarah said. Might as well be others who've been through the same thing. As they walked to their cars, Sarah felt different. Still shaken, still processing the trauma, but also stronger. She'd been a victim, yes. But she was also a survivor, and she was going to make sure her experience counted for something. The road ahead would be challenging. Court dates, testimony, reliving the fear. But Sarah wasn't alone. She had Marcus, she had Detective Chen, and soon she'd have a community of survivors who understood. David Thornton had tried to make her powerless. Instead, he'd awakened something fierce in her. A determination to fight not just for herself, but for everyone who'd ever felt the terror of being stalked. The viral video was spreading her story. Now she'd use that attention to spread awareness, to demand change, to help others. Thornton had wanted to find Elizabeth. Instead, he'd found Sarah Mitchell, and she was going to make him regret it. 3 months later, Sarah stood outside the courtroom, smoothing down her dress. The preliminary hearing would determine whether David Thornton would face trial and what charges would stick. Marcus waited beside her, as he had through everything. Detective Chen had also come, both as a witness and as moral support. You ready? Marcus asked. Sarah nodded. I've practiced my statement 100 times. I'm ready. Inside the courtroom, Sarah saw David Thornton for the first time since the parking lot. He looked different. Thinner. His hair was grayer. He wore an orange jumpsuit and sat between two guards. When she entered, his eyes found her immediately. Sarah forced herself to meet his gaze. She wouldn't look away. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. Thornton's expression was difficult to read. Not anger exactly. Not remorse either. Something in between. Confusion, maybe. Like he still couldn't understand why he was there. The hearing began. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Angela Torres, presented the evidence methodically. The photos from Thornton's motel room, the journal entries, the map, the testimony from the other women he'd stalked. Each piece of evidence painted a picture of obsession and delusion. The judge, an older man with stern features, listened carefully, taking notes. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. He was younger than Sarah expected, earnest-looking. His strategy became clear quickly. He wasn't denying what Thornton did. Instead, he was arguing that Thornton was mentally ill, not criminally responsible. Your Honor, my client suffers from a severe delusional disorder. He genuinely believed he was protecting his sister. There was no criminal intent. He needs treatment, not prison. Torres countered immediately. Your Honor, Mr. Thornton has been diagnosed and treated before, 3 times. Each time, he stopped treatment and reoffended. This isn't about mental illness alone. It's about a pattern of behavior that puts innocent women at risk. He knew his actions were wrong because he actively tried to hide them. He rented a car under false pretenses. He followed women covertly. This shows consciousness of wrongdoing. The judge called Sarah to testify. Her hands shook slightly as she took the witness stand, but her voice stayed steady. Torres asked her to describe the stalking, how it affected her life, how she felt. Sarah spoke clearly, making eye contact with the judge. Every day, I was afraid. Afraid to go to work, to shop for groceries, to exist in my own life. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. I kept looking over my shoulder constantly. And the worst part was feeling helpless. I reported it. But until he actually threatened me directly, there was nothing anyone could do. How do you feel now? Torres asked. Angry. Not just for myself, but for the other women he did this to. And for the ones who might have been next, if he hadn't been caught. This man stole months of peace from me. He made me afraid in my own home, my own city. The defense attorney asked gentler questions, trying to establish that Thornton never actually harmed Sarah physically. She answered honestly. No, he never touched her. No, he never verbally threatened her. But the psychological harm was real, and when Sarah stepped down, she felt emotionally drained but relieved. She'd said what needed saying. Detective Chen testified next about the evidence they'd found, and Thornton's history. Her testimony was clinical and professional, but powerful. She detailed how Thornton's pattern had escalated over the years, becoming bolder with new victims. Then something unexpected happened. The defense called David Thornton to testify. Thornton walked slowly to the witness stand. His attorney asked him about Elizabeth, about his sister's death, about his delusions. Thornton answered in a quiet, almost childlike voice. I just missed her so much, he said. Every day since she died, I've missed her. And when I saw Sarah, I thought Elizabeth had come back. I thought she needed me to protect her. Do you understand now that Sarah is not your sister? The attorney asked. Thornton looked directly at Sarah. I know she says she's not Elizabeth, but sometimes I still think. His voice trailed off. The judge intervened. Mr. Thornton, do you understand that your actions were wrong, that you frightened Miss Mitchell? Thornton was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I didn't mean to scare her. I just wanted Elizabeth back. Sarah felt an unexpected surge of pity. This man was clearly broken by grief and mental illness. But that didn't excuse what he'd done. It didn't erase the fear he'd caused. The hearing lasted 3 hours. At the end, the judge announced his decision. Mr. Thornton, you will stand trial on charges of stalking, harassment, and violation of previous court orders. However, I'm also ordering a comprehensive psychiatric evaluation. The question of your mental competency to stand trial must be determined. Until that evaluation is complete, you will remain in custody at a secure psychiatric facility. Thornton showed no reaction. He was led out of the courtroom by guards, his expression blank. Torres, approached Sarah afterward. This is a good outcome. The evaluation will take time, but it keeps him locked up. And when the trial comes, we'll push for mandatory treatment and supervision. He won't be able to just move and start over again. Sarah nodded. It wasn't complete justice yet, but it was progress. As she left the courthouse, reporters were waiting outside. The viral video had brought media attention to the case. Cameras pointed at her, microphones extended. Ms. Mitchell, how do you feel about today's hearing? Sarah paused. She'd prepared for this moment too. I feel relieved that the system is finally working, but my focus now is on making sure this doesn't happen to others. Stalking laws need to be stronger. Mental health treatment needs to be monitored better, and victims need to be taken seriously from the first report, not after months of fear. What would you say to other stalking victims? Another reporter asked. Sarah looked directly at the camera. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Report early and often. And know that you're not alone. There are people who will believe you and help you. Marcus pulled her away gently as more questions came. They walked to his truck together, both exhausted, but satisfied. You did good in there, Marcus said. So did you when it mattered most, Sarah replied. That day in the parking lot you didn't hesitate. You didn't wait for permission. You just protected me. That's what family does. They drove home in comfortable silence, both processing the day. The legal battle was far from over, but Sarah felt something she hadn't in months. Hope. 6 months after the hearing, Sarah stood in a community center conference room, looking at the 23 women sitting in chairs arranged in a circle. Each one was a stalking survivor. Each had her own story, fear and survival. Welcome to our support group, Sarah said, smiling at the new faces. This is a safe space. What's shared here stays here. The group had grown from 5 women to nearly 30 regular members. They met twice a month, sharing experiences, offering support, and learning from each other. Sarah had partnered with local therapists who volunteered their time to facilitate the meetings. But the support group was just the beginning. Sarah had also started working with state legislators on new stalking laws. The proposed legislation would require closer monitoring of repeat offenders, mandate continued treatment for those with mental health issues, and give victims more legal protection earlier in the stalking process. Sarah's law, as the media had dubbed it, was gaining support. The viral video had brought national attention to stalking cases. People were finally paying attention. Detective Chen attended Sarah's group meetings sometimes, offering practical advice on evidence collection and working with law enforcement. She'd become more than just the detective on Sarah's case. She'd become a friend and ally. Marcus still worried about his sister, but he also saw how she'd transformed her trauma into purpose. She was stronger now than she'd been before. Not because of what Thornton did, but because of what she chose to do after. David Thornton remained in a psychiatric facility. The evaluation had determined he was mentally incompetent to stand trial in his current state. The judge ordered indefinite treatment until he could be stabilized. Every 3 months, Sarah received updates on his progress. She'd requested to be notified if his status changed. She needed to know if he'd ever be released, though doctors said that was unlikely given the severity of his delusions and his history. One evening, Sarah was preparing materials for a presentation she was giving to a local police department about recognizing early stalking behaviors. Her phone rang. It was Detective Chen. Sarah, I wanted to tell you before you saw it on the news. David Thornton died yesterday. Sarah sat down slowly. What happened? Natural causes. Heart attack. He was in the facility's recreation room. They tried to revive him, but couldn't. Sarah didn't know how to feel. Relief. Guilt for feeling relief. Sadness for a life so consumed by grief and delusion. Are you okay? Chen asked. I think so. It's just complicated. I know. Listen, there's something else. His attorney contacted me. Thornton left a letter. He wrote it a few weeks ago. It's addressed to you. Sarah's heart raced. What does it say? I haven't read it. It's sealed. But his attorney says Thornton wanted you to have it. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. Sarah thought for a moment. Send it to me. I need to read it. The letter arrived 3 days later. Sarah stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Marcus sat beside her for support. The handwriting was neat and careful. The letter was short. Dear Sarah, I know now that you were never Elizabeth. The doctors have helped me understand that my sister is gone and has been for a long time. I'm sorry for the fear I caused you. I was lost in Neuve and couldn't find my way out. I read about your support group and the law you're working on. I'm glad something good came from something so wrong. I hope it helps other people avoid the pain I caused. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that in the end, I finally saw you as you are. Sarah Mitchell, not Elizabeth. And I'm sorry for every moment I made you feel unsafe. David Thornton. Sarah read the letter twice, tears streaming down her face. It didn't erase what happened. It didn't